back to Cinema Bums, where we always serve piping hot takes fresh out of the oven. This evening, we are going to be talking about the Oscars. We need to talk about Oscar. What can we say? Another year, another chance for the Academy to disappoint, enrage, and straight up baffle us with their choices. But you've heard us rag on them for probably over a year now, if you're a consistent listener to the pod. So why care what Emmett and Wade have to say? Because tonight we are joined by two very special guests. We only have them on twice a year, right around Oscar season. It is the famed Kurt Oscar and Oscar Mayer.
Thank you, Emmett. I am Kurt Oscar, renowned international Hollywood producer of such films as Godzilla and Kong and Red Notice, which I've been combing through the awards all day. Seemingly, I can't find where it's listed, but I know it must be in there somewhere. How's it going, Oscar?
It's going great. It's me, famed hot dog enthusiast and ballpark owner, Oscar Myers. You know, I don't really know why the Cinema Bums have me on, because I really know absolutely nothing about movies. In fact, I see approximately 3 new movies a year. But luckily, all 3 of the new movies that I watched this year did get nominated, and we will be talking about them. So that's exciting.
What's happened in the world of hot dogs over the last year?
It's been bleak. As people have not been going to as many in-person sporting events, the sales of Frankfurter weenies have been decreasing at an exponential rate. Also, I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but there is... Look, hot dogs are the original fake meat, but if you're going to tell me that you can make fake meat without animal product, stunning. I am flabbergasted. I'm alarmed, but I might just have to start funneling some money into it, because it seems that that's the way that this world is going.
Well, it must be good news for you that I heard some Frankfurter weenies were on the voting board for the Academy Awards this year.
In fact, I believe it was entirely populated by Frankfurter weenies.
From miles outside of Hollywood, you could hear them yelling, "Judi Dench! Judi Dench!"
I mean, it's like... I don't even know what it's like. I don't have a good metaphor. It's just annoying. Shall we get into it?
I guess so. Emmett, are you going to be here with us for this recording?
No, Emmett has already scampered off somewhere.
Oh, good. OscarWatch!
OscarWatch!
Okay, well, we're back to talk about the 94th Academy Awards, aka the 2022 Oscars, confusingly honoring the movies of 2021. Nominations just dropped this morning. Well, I should say today we're going to go over the major categories, say who we would give each award to, and our predictions for who the Academy would. But before we start, do you have any big picture reactions to these nominations?
My big picture reaction to a lot of these is just a disappointment that I hadn't seen more of them. I'm disappointed in myself. I'm always disappointed in the Academy, so that's nothing new. How about you?
For this podcast, very excited to see Dune get as many nominations as it did. 10 nominations, the second highest of any movie this year after The Power of the Dog with 12. I didn't think that was a sure thing, you know? Doing a big genre picture, kind of rare to break into the Academy upper echelons.
Absolutely. An excellent film directed by...
Yes. I mean, this is the insane thing. 10 nominations, almost all of them in, the technical categories, like cinematography, visual effects, sound, costume design, production design, things like that. Whose vision do you think those categories were executing?
Timothée Chalamet's.
I mean, if the Academy had seen a Denis Villeneuve movie before, and I know they have because they've nominated them, you would know that those things are all in service of the grander, distinct vision of Denis Villeneuve, who was snubbed for Best Director.
It is pretty shocking. And I think, like, honestly, it would have made more sense if it was the other way around. If Dune had not gotten the Best Picture nod, because it is really half of a good picture.
Yeah.
No shade to it. I think it's great, but it is half a movie. But if they had given the Best Director nom to Denis and no Best Picture nom, I think that would make more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That was definitely disappointing. Some other notable snubs: House of Gucci, The French Dispatch, Passing, which is the one I'm maybe the most shocked to see, was totally snubbed. The Green Knight, I mean...
That's criminal.
Maybe not shocking because it is like a genre movie, but not getting adapted screenplay, not getting Dev Patel for lead actor, I mean, that's just
not
insane.
Getting a Best Director nod.
Yeah.
Because it's such a strong and coherent vision. It's
absolutely.
Or even visual or something. I mean, it's got weird, cool stuff going on in it.
I mean, I feel like Dev Patel in those costumes is like already a more iconic, distinctive image than most anything else.
Yeah.
That came out of cinema last year.
He's so good. I need to watch that movie again, like, immediately.
I feel like I kind of need to watch Dune again after seeing all of these. Maybe it's time to throw it on again. And I do want to mention, too, that the Oscars have announced that they're going to have a host. For the first time since 2018, there will be a host of the Oscars again. But they have not said who.
I think they're really just going to wait until the very last minute. And I think the Oscars are terrified right now. They're like, if we say that someone's going to be a host, within 15 minutes, that person is going to do something cancelable on the internet. And then we're going to be really screwed. And then we're either going to have to change hosts or, like, you know, do that host and everybody's pissed at us about it. So I think what they're going to do is wait until the last minute, look around, see which, like, C-list celebrities they've got who are not canceled at the moment, and, like, drag one of them on stage in exchange for bottles of champagne to pop on people afterwards.
C-list celebrities who are not yet canceled. Cinema bums for Oscar hosts? Dare I say?
Don't test fate.
They could be, the Oscars could be the first people to ever write in to cinemabumspod@gmail.com.
Oh my god. Incredible.
Maybe they could ask Lady Gaga. People like her, and I don't think she's doing anything that night.
Yeah. Rough.
Hey, Beyonce nominated for the first time ever. That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
That's kind of shocking to me.
That it's the first time?
Yeah, that she wasn't nominated for Best Supporting for a role in Pink Panther.
Yeah, that is... No comment on Pink Panther. I don't want to get canceled by the silent member of Cinema Bums.
Kristen Stewart and Ariana DeBose becoming the second and third openly queer actors ever nominated for an Oscar, following Sir Ian McKellen in 1998.
Really?
Isn't that kind of shocking?
That is shocking to me. I see here you've got Denzel Washington, now the most nominated black actor of all time. That's pretty cool for The Tragedy of Macbeth. One of the 3 films which I saw this year.
Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons and Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz, 2 different real-life couples, both nominated in the same year, which is really wild.
And all 4 for different movies, and they're not all competing with each other, right?
Yeah, they're all not competing. Kirsten and Jesse are both in Power of the Dog.
Gotcha.
But the other 2 are indifferent.
That's wild.
A la Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig for a screenplay in 2019.
Yeah. I got to kind of root for them to get it just because that would be fun. Because that's like a really cool bit of, like, a double date trivia, you know? And all excellent actors. Haven't seen any of those movies, but there are all actors that I think are good. So give them their Oscar.
I was pretty shocked that Kirsten Dunst hadn't been nominated before.
She's never been nominated? That's wild.
No. Yeah, first time.
Man.
And we should... Well, we'll talk about these more. Should we get into the categories?
Have one more thing to say about Spider-Man and Shang-Chi both being nominated for visual effects.
Yes, so some popular movies, and No Time to Die, which is a popular movie that was actually good, got nominated 3 times in the technical categories. I love Shang-Chi, and I'm very excited that's nominated, but just wanted to shout those out.
Spider-Man, I hear, is like the most popular movie of the year, numbers wise, like was the best selling movie this year, and like one of the best selling movies of all time. No love for it in any category other than visual effects. So that's, I mean, interesting.
Yeah, there was sort of like a campaign to get it to recognize the fact that it brought people back to the movies, which no other movie really did. Did not really see many results other than best visual effects. I personally would have given it a nod for screenplay, I think, just for those guys managing to like navigate everything in that movie as well as they did.
Yeah, they pull off something which shouldn't be able to be pulled off. Yeah, let's get into the categories. So first off, we have animated feature film. The 5 nominees were Encanto, Flea, Luca, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, and Raya and the Last Dragon.
Okay, I'm over the moon to see The Mitchells versus the Machines here. I'm really glad it made it. I was very worried that it wouldn't, because it's hard for movies that aren't made by Disney or Pixar to get nominated. Even harder for them to win, but I'm really excited to see that. Flea, we should mention, is an animated documentary, and it was also nominated for Best Documentary and Best International Film.
Okay.
So I feel like it's going to win something. For this, I would give it to The Mitchells versus the Machines. I think that the Academy will give it to Encanto.
Encanto is the only one of these that I have seen. And may I say, it is beautiful to behold. It is like a gorgeous, lush film. But it is so boring. It is like... so like you call the shot from the very first moment. And I know it's a kids movie, but kids are not stupid either. Like kids will call the shot as well. And I don't know if it was the TV that I was watching it on, but it seemed to me that the lyrics, which I assume are good, clever lyrics, were so buried in the mix of the music that I couldn't hear them or understand.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like I also lost a lot of whatever interesting lyrical nuance was being brought to it. I agree with you, unfortunately, that I think it will be the best picture or like the best animated, like the Oscars choice. I mean, I think it is awesome on the representation side for a movie like that. But then like, if you're going to do a movie that has good representation, then make it a good movie. Like it's not that hard. You seem to be capable of making good movies sometimes. Like use it then as well. That would be what I would say. And also another one of those things where like everybody in this film, except for the main character, has like some sort of Latin American accent, but the main character sounds like some Midwestern American like girl. And it's like all these people are supposed to be growing up in Colombia. I think the whole thing should have been in Spanish with subtitles if you really wanted to like do the thing. And I think that Disney is going to get patted on the back all the way home for this.
Well, this is a weird one because I feel like when it came out, what I heard from everyone, basically what you were saying, like I heard everyone just say like, it's nothing special. It's fine, but it's not great. And then cut to 2 months later and it's like the biggest thing in the world. And like the songs have hit #1, like the songs have done way better than the Frozen songs did. And it's like the #1 movie 4 weeks in a row. So a very weird immediate reappraisal for Encanto, but I haven't seen it. So next we have Best Documentary Feature Length: Ascension, Attica, Flea, Summer of Soul, and Writing with Fire.
Have you seen any of these?
I have seen Summer of Soul, which I love. I talked about on our Best of 2021 episode. It's a great concert film. That's on Hulu. I'm torn. I would give it to Summer of Soul, and I think that's the most popular of these, but I think that Flea has to win at least one of its 3. So I think my prediction is going to be that this is where Flea takes it in documentary.
Interesting. Then I'll give it to Summer of Soul. Because that seemed cool from your description of it. Next up, we have International Feature Film. The 5 nominees in this category are Drive My Car from Japan, Flea from Denmark, The Hand of God from Italy, Lunana, a yak in the classroom from Bhutan, and The Worst Person in the World from Norway.
Okay, very interested in this Yak in the Classroom movie.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I would just give an Oscar to it for best title.
There should be a best title Oscar. That absolutely should be.
Yeah.
Okay, two of these movies that I really love, and it was cool to see them get nominated elsewhere too. Drive My Car and The Worst Person in the World.
Uh-huh.
The Worst Person in the World just came out to anyone who did not see like screeners or festivals. But it's sort of a modern rom-com. It's set in Norway. It's very funny. It's very beautiful. It's very honest and brutal at times. It is kind of like the millennial rom-com, I would say. Ooh. And you know that I tend to be a little dismissive of movies that have things to say about technology or modern life that have some big take. Yeah. I mean, I want to say this. Any movie that is making a point that people are spending too much time on screens, any movie watched on a screen that is arguing that screens are ruining people's lives has shot itself in the foot before the race even began. But this movie, I think, handles it well, and I really loved. It's excellent. Drive My Car is also excellent. This is the only movie I saw after we recorded our best of episode that made it onto my actual best of 2021 list.
Oh, uh-huh.
And it made it at number 3, right behind Green Knight and West Side Story. So wow. I really loved this movie. It's by Ryusuke Hamaguchi, who made 2 movies last year. This movie is 3 hours long, which listeners to this podcast will know that is the length I would prefer 3 movies to be, rather than one single movie. But it is kind of like an epic. Like, it covers so much. It's a movie where, like, the opening credits roll 50 minutes in. And that's when, like, the basic premise of the movie starts.
Oh my god. Okay, so I'm hooked because I thought... It stuns me that this is a movie from Japan. I definitely thought that this was like about another movie about the Beatles in the same year that Peter Jackson had done his like giant documentary. And I was like, don't care, pass. So it's delightful to hear that does it have anything to do with the Beatles?
No, it's adapted from Haruki Murakami short story.
Oh, wow.
And I think he names many of his works after Beatles songs.
Interesting.
I know that his most famous is Norwegian Wood, which is obviously a Beatles song.
Yeah.
The story is very short and not very good. What this movie is about is a Japanese theater director who is sort of mourning the end of a very, very complicated relationship in his personal life. And he's doing that through directing a production of Uncle Vanya.
Oh my god.
At this theater festival.
Wow.
And it's sort of about like all the ways that Uncle Vanya is reflecting his situation.
Oh, whoa.
So it's about that, and it's also about his relationship with the woman who is chauffeuring him to and from the festival while he's there.
Whoa. Okay. I'm really into this. Is it in Japanese?
It is in Japanese. It's subtitled.
Oh, dope. Okay, I should watch this with my dad because he lived in Japan. He loves anything to do with Japanese culture or Japanese language and people. So that would be a fun one to watch with the old man. The old man, Rob Myers.
It's very culturally specific too. Like, it's kind of about, you know, like a Japanese culture has different ideas about processing emotion in public than we do. Mm-hmm. I've read a lot of interviews with a director where he talks about sort of like riding inside a car is like a space in between being in public and in private.
Ooh, yeah.
And like how you react differently, and also like a space where you can have an intimate conversation with someone and not have to look at them.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that stuff. So this movie absolutely rocks. So does The Worst Person in the World, but I would give this to Drive My Car, and I would recommend that.
A great teacher and mentor of mine once told my entire acting class that a taxi cab in New York City was the great liminal zone of sexual/romantic relationships. It's like where it either happens or it doesn't. And I thought that was fascinating. And I feel like that's kind of like in what he's talking about there with like semi-public, semi-private. Interesting. I really want to see that movie now. And also Worst Person in the World after reading your review. I'm just going to go out on a limb, though, and say that the Yak in the Classroom movie might win because I love the title. So that's what I'm going to put down. I haven't seen any of them.
Yeah, that's excellent. Okay. Next is music, best original score.
Mm-hmm.
We have Don't Look Up by Nicholas Britell, Dune by Hans Zimmer, Encanto by Jermaine Franco, Parallel Mothers by Alberto Iglesias, and The Power of the Dog by Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead.
Whoa. I don't know if Hans Zimmer can be nominated for original score. I mean, has Hans Zimmer written an original score since like 2003? Or actually, no, since 2008 when he did The Dark Knight. I think that is the last time there was something original done. He discovered drones in 2008, and that was basically it.
Right.
I think the music in Dune is good, but I don't think it's particularly original.
And the whole Hans Zimmer thing, too, is that, like, a lot of times it's not even him, as we know.
Yeah, it's the studio of Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, I mean, although they were doing the campaign, it sounded like that he did really care about Dune. Mm-hmm. And I would like to think that it was a lot of his own work in Dune. I would say the wrong Johnny Greenwood score is nominated because his Power of the Dog score is fine, but his score for Spencer was my favorite one I heard last year.
Whoa.
It's like a mix of chaotic terror and Christmas jazz.
Oh.
And it like cuts in between those two constantly.
That's cool.
So that was what I would have nominated and given it to. Of these, I don't know. Maybe, I guess I'm going to say Dune. I feel like they like Hans and he's running a campaign about like the original things that he put into this weird score. I guess I'm going to say Dune for this.
If I had to say anyone, I would say Harry Manfredini for Friday the 13th. That was my favorite score that I heard this year.
Do you want me to write that down?
Yes, please do.
Okay. In a shocking upset.
Okay, next up, actor in a supporting role. All right, so we're getting into it. We're getting into the good stuff.
We hate music.
Kieran Hines for Belfast. Troy Kutzer for Coda, who is, I believe, the first deaf actor to ever be nominated for a supporting role.
Yes.
Much apologies if I got it wrong last year when that dude who was in... when the old dude who was in The Sound of Metal, I may have thought that he actually was deaf, but he was not. He was still an incredible actor. This guy's the real deal. Troy Kutzer. Jesse Plemons for The Power of the Dog. J.K. M.F. Simmons for Being the Ricardos. Honestly, I would have given him the Oscar for his role in Spider-Man as Alex Jones. That was pretty awesome. J.K. Simmons playing Alex Jones in a Spider-Man movie. What more could you want? It was honestly maybe my favorite part of that whole movie beside the one Andrew Garfield scene that we all know about. And then Cody Smith McPhee, my Blue King for The Power of the Dog. Get this. He's the kid in The Road, a terrible adaptation of a great book. And he is the kid in, most importantly to me, the movie Let Me In, which is an incredible vampire film.
I think he has a really like unique presence. I think that movie, Let Me In, is one that uses him the right way. Mm-hmm. And this movie is one of the first since then to do that.
Oh, really?
He has the best performance of the movie for me in Power of the Dog. And I would say that other than him, these are all surprises to me.
Interesting.
Like, these are all kind of shocking picks. Not having Mike Feist or David Alvarez for West Side Story. Bradley Cooper for Licorice Pizza is one a lot of people talked about.
You said he was, like, excellent in 5 minutes of that movie. Like, just a star in that 5 minutes of that movie.
And Jeffrey Wright in French Dispatch, or even Jeffrey Wright in No Time to Die. I mean, it was a great year for him. Oscar Isaac in Dune?
Damn.
Where was he?
Where was he? All I have ever needed from you was for you to be my son. or something like that. I mean, it's the acceptance that you want from the stern father figure that you didn't even know you needed.
Even Coleman Domingo in Candyman to go out on a limb? I would have gone there.
Interesting.
Oh, why isn't Alex Hassel as Ross from Tragedy of Macbeth in this?
Oh, yeah, for real, because he is so good. He is the most interesting thing in that movie. Nothing against the lady playing the witch, or the witches.
Uh-huh.
She's super creepy and awesome, but Ross like runs away with that show, which is not something anyone ever says about Macbeth.
Yes, absolutely. So I would want this to go to Cody Smith McPhee. I feel like it's probably either him or Jesse Plemons, and maybe they split the vote from the same movie.
Oh, I see. And then it goes to somebody else.
Yeah. I think his performance is far and away the best on this list, so I am going to give it to him optimistically.
I'm going to say Jesse Plemons, because that seems also like something that would happen.
Yeah.
Cool.
Next, we got actress in a supporting role. Jessie Buckley in The Lost Daughter. Ariana DeBose in West Side Story. Judi Dench in Belfast. Kirsten Dunst in The Power of the Dog. And Anjanou Ellis in King Richard. And last night I asked Laura if she wanted to watch King Richard, and she said, no, I don't want to watch any more Shakespeare. And I said, no, it's not that one.
I don't know if they did a great job on explaining that wasn't Shakespeare to people. Because that was also my first thought. I was like, there was another Shakespeare nominated this year? And then I remembered that's not what it's about.
Yeah. Jessie Buckley for The Lost Daughter. She is the woman in I'm Thinking of Ending Things on Netflix. This is also a Netflix movie, The Lost Daughter. It's kind of like a fun, pulpy mystery. Olivia Colman is the lead, and it was very fun to me just to watch a movie where like a 40-year-old, just like an average woman without any sort of special action skills or bizarre superpowers is the lead in a mystery thriller.
Yeah.
Jessie Buckley is playing her in flashbacks.
Oh, interesting.
Flashing back to her. And I thought that was an excellent performance, and one that I would have nominated and was surprised to see on this list. So
interesting.
I would give it to her. I think it is going to go to Ariana DeBose, who is very good.
Which character does she play in West Side?
She plays Anita, who Rita Moreno won the Oscar for back in the 60s.
And what is that corollary in Romeo and Juliet? For those of us who are uncultured.
I think it's kind of an original. She is basically Tybalt's girlfriend.
Okay, gotcha. But as an important...
Tybalt's girlfriend, but she also plays the nurse role of like taking care of Juliet.
Okay, cool. I'm going to say Kirsten Dunst for Power of the Dog. I feel like Power of the Dog is going to be one that sweeps it for the acting section. Don't ask me why. I just have that feeling.
Well, I would love to see Kirsten get one.
She's been carrying movies for less talented people since like the Spider-Man movies. She's been doing it in Elizabethtown. Like
Melancholia is the one that I thought that she had already won for. And
right.
It turns out she wasn't even nominated.
Crazy. Insane.
Midnight Special a couple of years ago. She was really good in that.
Yeah, I feel like we don't give her enough things. Give her more things, please.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we've got writing, adapted screenplay. So for Coda, we have Sian Heder. We have Drive My Car by Ryosuke Hamaguchi and Takamasa Ui. Dune by John Spates and Denis Villeneuve and Eric Roth. We have The Lost Daughter by Maggie Gyllenhaal. And The Power of the Dog by Jane Campion, who I believe also is some other first. What is the other first that Jane Campion is? She the first time a woman has been nominated for Best Director twice?
Yes, I believe that is true. Because she was nominated for The Piano back in 1993.
A movie that has come up on 2 different quizzes in recent Cinema Bums history.
Yeah, another New Zealand legend, along with current miniseries Taika Waititi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Kind of shocking not to see West Side Story, because Tony Kushner's like adaptation of that is so much what makes that movie new and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I would be very torn between Drive My Car and Dune. Kind of doing opposite things. I think Drive My Car takes a somewhat basic, very short story and creates so much incredible, complex emotions out of it. And I think Dune manages to distill the essence of something that is so huge and complex and technical and make it make sense to your everyday viewer.
I also agree that the Dune adaptation is really impressive. Dune is not a book that is paced like other books. It just isn't. Mm-hmm. It is not paced like a Star Wars book would be paced. And I think that movie does a good job of being paced kind of like a Star Wars movie would be paced. Maybe a little slower, maybe a little less actiony, but it does a good job of being a movie that a person could watch, which Dune is not always does not always feel that approachable. And I feel like the movie kind of is, especially given Denny's other work. Mm-hmm. You could see him really going all in and making a movie just for the fans of the book. He didn't do exclusively that.
Yeah.
And yet he did not piss people off by cutting out major important elements too. So I think he treaded that line very well. I doubt that it'll win though.
I think I'm going to predict Drive My Car, both for winner and I think what I would give it to, although hard pressed between the two.
I'm going to give it to The Lost Daughter, Maggie Gyllenhaal, writing a screenplay. I don't know if she's done so before, if this is her first big one. Certainly the first one she's been nominated for.
Mm-hmm.
I love Maggie Gyllenhaal. I have since Donnie Darko, always will.
Mm-hmm.
Just as here's hoping that she gets it for that. And that's definitely going on my list to watch before the winners get announced.
Yeah, that's on Netflix. Now we've got writing original screenplay. We've got Belfast by Kenneth Branagh, Don't Look Up by Adam McKay, King Richard by Zach Balin, a Wilmington, North Carolina native.
Ooh.
Licorice Pizza by Paul Thomas Anderson, and The Worst Person in the World by the film's director Joachim Trier and Eskil Voigt.
Any thoughts on what you think should win, what will win?
I would give this to The Worst Person in the World. I think it's really well written and very original, the point of the category. I think it will be given to Licorice Pizza, which has gotten nominated not for performances, weirdly, but in a lot of the technical categories. I think this is the one it takes. It is a really good movie. It's just kind of a shaggy script, but it's about Hollywood. So I definitely could see them rewarding that.
I just want to take this moment to shout out another Paul Thomas Anderson movie, which is Phantom Thread. That is a really good movie, which probably got some attention at whatever Oscars years it was, but I don't really feel like people talk about. It's an excellent, tense film in the same vein as almost like a Black Swan, and is a really cool film with great performances from the three leads. That's all I want to say about it. I just thought of it while we were talking earlier and wanted to bring it up. This is the segue. I think that the Academy wants to be self-important and will give it to Don't Look Up, which is probably the worst screenplay in this list. I watched the first 20 minutes of it with my family and was I'll go do literally anything else. I think there's some laundry to fold.
Yeah, I haven't heard from anyone who likes this movie. And yet the Oscars love Adam McKay. So I don't know. It's nominated enough. It's got to win somewhere.
Yeah. All right. Actor in a leading role. Woo, woo. Here we go. Okay. Actor in a leading role. Javier Bardem for Being the Ricardos. Benedict Cumberbatch for The Power of the Dog. Andrew Garfield for Spider-Man No Way Home. Will Smith for King Richard. And Denzel Washington for The Tragedy of Macbeth.
You're kind of joking here, but I do think that were Garfield to win, and he would be my pick because that role in Tick, Tick, Boom is one of the best performances I saw last year. I think the fact that he had 4 big movies all come out back to back in basically the last 3 months of 2021, Mainstream, The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Tick, Tick, Boom, and Spider-Man No Way Home, the biggest movie and the movie where he was the thing that most people were talking about after.
He really is. I mean, it's hard to overstate how much he is the best part of that movie. How much everything that he does in that movie is the best part of that movie. But yes, sorry, go on.
I think Zendaya is so good in that movie too. But I think her stuff is a little less showy.
It is, and it's also like they could have done a lot more with her too in it.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't.
Yeah.
And I feel like they knew what they were doing with the Andrew Garfield stuff and they didn't as much with her.
The fact that Javier Bardem and Nicole Kidman are both nominated for Being the Ricardos, a movie that is not nominated for Best Picture or Best Director or Writing, I think that that is the Academy saying, we know this movie is bad, but they're famous people playing historical figures. We could not nominate them.
What is the movie? What is the movie
The movie
about?
is about Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz.
Oh. See, I thought this was a TV show that they were in.
Yeah, well, it's on Amazon Prime, and it's about a TV show. But the Oscars' concession to outraged viewers across the world is that they did not nominate it for Best Picture, but they had to nominate them for actor and actress.
Wow.
I would give this to Andrew Garfield. I think that it is going to go to Will Smith, who I have not seen the movie yet, but I want to. I think Will Smith should have an Oscar. He's one of my favorite actors. I think he's doing like a big press tour throughout this year. He wrote a book, I think all of that stuff is playing into it.
He's consistently great. Like in every movie he's ever been in, he's consistently so good.
I think there's a possibility of the Chadwick Boseman thing happening again, where everyone just assumes that Will Smith is going to win, but doesn't actually vote for them themselves, Everyone says, everyone I know is voting for Will Smith, so I don't have to. There's a possibility, but I do think that it's going to go to Smith.
I would like to take a moment to talk about one of the few movies on this list on this whole list that I've seen, Tragedy of Macbeth, and Denzel Washington's performance in this film, which I think at moments is very, very good. I think the movie is very beautiful. I think it was like beautifully shot, but I don't think it was very well thought out as far as like what is going on with the characters. Like, I think a lot more emphasis was put on the visuals of it. And I think that a lot of choices were made by the director. And so I'm not blaming this on Mr. Washington. There was a lot of choices that kind of like robbed the actors of having to do the hard thing that the play asks you to do. Specifically, I'm thinking of the dinner scene, which is like one of the most incredible sequences in the play, where the ghost of Banquo reappears and torments Macbeth while he's at dinner with all of his subjects. And they play that scene in a separate room with him and the ghost while the dinner happens elsewhere, which robs the scene of the entire problem of the scene, which is that you're having a meltdown in front of your guests. And that's like that's the biggest one. But I feel like there's multiple instances where like the direction was undercutting the acting. And I think this is true of both Denzel Washington's performance and Frances McDormand's performance. And I think, frankly, as well, that they are both too old to be playing either of those characters. That Macbeth is a story about a young couple dealing with the loss of a child, not the story of an old couple who can't have children. There's no stakes in it that way. It's about whether or not the king on the throne will have children and like continue the line. Like that is a crucial part of what that whole thing is about. And so I think his delivery of lines is good in that it makes a lot of it relatable and makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is a little mumble-mouthed sometimes. And I think there are other performances in that film, particularly by Ross, by Lady Macduff, by Macduff, and by the Witch, to name four that I think are like really outstanding in that. As well as I think that Duncan is pretty good too. I just like am underwhelmed by both Frances McDormand and Denzel Washington's performance in this film. I honestly just don't think it was directed very well. Sometimes if direction isn't good, it costs the actors just as much as the directors. And you will notice Joel Coen not up there for Best Director.
Sure.
I think that's one of the few sensible choices they made this year. I'll say Benedict Cumberbatch for this one. I'm predicting it's kind of a sweep for Power of the Dog.
The Cumberbatch is good, sort of playing against type, but that's like kind of part of what's going on. Also in Spider-Man No Way Home, so interesting. Actress in a leading role, we have Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Olivia Colman for The Lost Daughter, Penelope Cruz for Parallel Mothers, Nicole Kidman for Being the Ricardos, and Kristen Stewart for Spencer. The Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 1, starring Oscar-nominated actress Kristen Stewart.
That's incredible.
Who I'm really glad to see here because she got snubbed a lot of other places. So people did not necessarily think she was going to be there. But that's another one of the best performances I saw this year. I would give it to her. And I think it's going to be worst case scenario, and it will go to Nicole Kidman.
Probably going to be Bryce Dallas Howard playing Jessica Chastain in The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Okay. I can see it. They limited themselves to only 3 of the 5 being real historical figures. This year, so
in real life, I could see it being Olivia Colman for The Lost Daughter because she is super popular from The Crown, from Broadchurch, and wasn't she also in The Queen? Or no, The Favourite?
Yeah, she won for that.
She won
years ago.
Yeah, we know that they like her. And I think she's a really talented actress. I will say, okay, here's something. Everybody's mom's favorite actor and actress were famously snubbed this season. Jamie Dornan and Karina Balfe, who were the leads in Belfast, which got a supporting actor nod.
Yes.
They were not nominated. There's going to be a lot of moms who are very pissed about this. I think the answer to this, I haven't seen the movie, so maybe their performances aren't that great. Whatever.
No, they're good.
I think the real answer here is that the Oscars are a bunch of snobs and they know they're TV actors. You know, that they know they've got like that, their fame comes from Outlander, and that they're just like, no, we're not going to give it to them. And I think that's BS, frankly.
Yeah, I was really shocked. I didn't necessarily expect them to have it locked in. They're both really good in the movie. They're both so hot. They are like the leads of the movie in a big way. And along with Jude Hill, who plays the young stand-in for Kenneth Branagh. But I was shocked that it was the grandparents who got the noms. The grandpa I could kind of see, but Judi Dench, I think, is in 4 minutes of that movie. Like, she does almost nothing. So
you know that if she wins, it's really for her dressing up like David Bowie in Kenneth Branagh's last film.
Oh, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Some others. Alana Haim for Licorice Pizza. Sad to not see her here. We already talked about Lady Gaga. Rebecca Ferguson for Dune.
Oh, yeah. What the hell is that?
She is the best. That's where I would have gone for the movie. So,
yeah.
Really surprised not to see that. Tessa Thompson in passing. Taylor Page, Zola. A bunch of ones left off for Nicole Kidman.
Damn.
By the way, Harriet Sansom Harris actually does a good job playing Lucy in Licorice Pizza. Another movie.
She plays Lucille Ball in that?
Yeah.
Huh.
In like one sort of like 10-minute escapade that's very fun. I love Nicole Kidman, but I do not think that's the performance.
I also like her, but I mean, if you're going to complain about getting to play Lucille Ball, like, you know what you can do with that. So, all right. Directing. The 5 nominees in this category are Belfast, Kenneth Branagh, Drive My Car for Ryusuke Hamaguchi, Licorice Pizza, Paul Thomas Anderson, The Power of the Dog by Jane Campion, and West Side Story, Steven Spielberg, making him the first director ever to be nominated for Best Director in 6 different decades.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
Incredible.
And Kenneth Branagh is the first to be nominated for Best Director, whose last film was Artemis Fowl. I wanna celebrate that as well.
Top of the morning.
Has there ever been more of a glow up in Kenneth Branagh and Judi Dench going from Artemis Fowl to Belfast in 1 year?
All I can say is Remember the Name.
Remember the Name. These are all worthy wins. I don't think the directing in Belfast is quite as strong as the others, but I understand the nod, sort of in the fact that it's a very personal. I mean, it literally is him telling the story of his childhood. Mm-hmm. It's in black and white. I totally get that. It's him sort of re-energized for the first time in a little bit. I think I would give it to Steven Spielberg, who maybe feels like an old hat choice to some, but I think that is him being re-energized in a huge way for the first time in 20 years, 20 plus years. If the movie is good, my guess is that Spielberg is going to take it next year for The Fabelmans, which is his movie about his childhood that he's making right now. Mm-hmm. And I think that this year it is going to go to Jane Campion, who did an excellent job directing, has been around forever, has been a prestige director for decades, and only got nominated once, has never won. I do believe that it is her year.
I'm going to go with Kenneth Branagh for this. I think the Oscars love a comeback story, coming back strong off of Artemis Fowl. Like you said, a black and white movie winning for Best Director seems like something that would happen. A movie about childhood seems like something that would happen for Best Director.
And now we have made it to Best Picture. I want to say something favorable about the Oscars here.
Okay.
So, we've talked in the past about how in 2008 they failed to nominate Dark Knight and WALL-E. There were riots in the streets. Mm-hmm. Because of that, they said that there can be up to 10 nominees in the hopes that they would nominate some movies that general audiences actually watched and that those general audiences in turn would watch the Oscars. That hasn't happened. But they have done this bizarre, complicated voting system where there can be up to 10 nominees, but only if they reach a certain threshold. So what this means is that normally we get somewhere between 5 and 7 each year.
Yeah.
This year they said, we're just going to give it to the 10 that get the most votes.
Okay.
There will be 10. And whichever 10 get the most votes, that's all we're going to do. Which, why weren't you doing that in the first place? But I think the fact that there is stuff like Dune and Nightmare Alley in this list is because of that.
Interesting.
Okay, the 10 Best Picture nominations. Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, Drive My Car, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story.
It seems like a weird group of movies. My big question marks here are Nightmare Alley and Don't Look Up, and to a lesser extent, Dune. I'm glad that Dune was popular. I really liked Dune. I don't know why it would be a Best Picture nominee. It is half a movie. It is the setup half of an epic story. It would be like giving the Oscar to Fellowship of the Ring instead of to Return of the King. Nightmare Alley, I've heard, is just kind of mediocre. Don't Look Up, I've heard, is objectively annoying. The rest of these, they've got nominated in other places along here, so it doesn't surprise me. I would say it's probably going to be West Side Story or Power of the Dog for my prediction.
Mm-hmm.
I think West Side Story because it is like a revitalization of a classic that I believe also won the Best Picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like both looking forward and looking backward in a big way. And especially if they don't give Best Director to Steven Spielberg, to give Best Picture to the movie seems like something that would happen. It's like a movie kind of movie, in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Power of the Dog, just because it's the most nominated film. And that seems like a good bet. What do you think?
I want to talk for a minute about Coda.
Okay.
This movie came out, I want to say almost a year ago. I feel like I watched this movie last spring. It's on Apple TV Plus. Coda stands for Child of Deaf Adults. It's a movie about a teenage girl who's the only hearing member of her family. Her family are fishermen, so she kind of works full-time translating and helping them run their business while also sort of being in high school and doing all the high school things. The like deaf, non-hearing stuff in this movie is really fascinating, really interesting look into that community. Sometimes very funny. I mean, the performances are good. That stuff I have like continued to think about after. But beyond that angle, this is like a Lifetime movie. Like it is the most paint by numbers, saccharine, crowd pleaser is what you would say, maybe in a positive light. But like, this is a movie that you will feel one of two ways for, and I genuinely believe there's no in between other than like being interested in the unique angle on this. You will either roll your eyes the entire movie, or you will be in tears the entire movie.
Okay.
And I sadly was the former, which I often am not. Sadly, I thought this movie was just straight up bad. I'm really surprised to see it get so much love for like a movie that came out a long time ago that I feel like a lot of people weren't talking about. But you know, the screenplay nom, I can see it's the tale of two angles. Like the interesting stuff you put into that story is worthy of recognition, but then the story is absolute boilerplate. You've seen a billion times. There's no new angle on it. You know? And that dad performance is really good. He sort of has like the emotional role of the movie. But looking at this list, I'm interested in watching Nightmare Alley now. I know it's on HBO Max.
Oh, okay.
I like Del Toro. I, like the rest of America, completely missed this movie in theaters because it came out the same day as Spider-Man. And it was in theaters for seemingly 1 week. And I just heard people say like it's long and violent, and didn't check it out at the time. But watching it at home maybe is a little more palatable.
I generally like Del Toro's stuff. I famously think that his Oscar winner, Shape of Water, is absolute hot garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly prefer Hellboy 2 over over that mess.
You're part of the Golden Army.
I'm a part of the Golden Army. Yeah. I like his weird stuff. I've heard that this movie has no supernatural element to it, which is something that kind of like turns me off of it, because I'm like, what is a Del Toro movie without the supernatural? I'm sure it's still macabre and violent and other interesting things. And I do like a lot of the actors who are in it. So, you know, maybe worth checking out. But I've seen so many just like 2 and 3 star reviews of it that it kind of turned me off.
Yeah, I wonder how much of it landing on this list had to do with a sort of 11th hour Hail Mary op-ed that Martin Scorsese wrote.
Really?
Where he was like, hey, no one has seen Nightmare Alley, but it's an incredible movie that I love, so please watch it.
That's interesting.
That happened right about the time that all the voting was open. So I would give this to West Side Story. That, just for me personally, along with The Green Knight, tied for the best movie I saw last year. It is, like you say, a movie. Like, it is such a big screen, colorful, bold, like big emotions, huge set piece, doing a lot with the cinematography, doing a lot with the sound, you know, a bold swing that could either totally wipe out or really succeed. I think it's probably going to go to either Belfast or The Power of the Dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to say The Power of the Dog.
Interesting.
Being the most nominated normally either means you're going to sweep or you're going to get like best costumes, and that's it. Both of those happen a lot.
Uh-huh.
So it could go either way, but Power of the Dog is fun. It's on Netflix. It's a Western with Benedict Cumberbatch. It's 2 hours long, and you spend an hour and 50 minutes knowing that something terrible is going to happen, and with the sense of dread just rising and rising and rising and rising. And what you think that specific bad thing is going to be changes several times over the course of the movie, as well as who you think is going to cause it and who it's going to happen to.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it eventually does happen, it's very exciting and satisfying. So part of why I think that it may have appealed to voters, I think, is that it's a much more fun movie to think about after you know what's going on than maybe it is to watch the first time.
Interesting.
I bet it's a really fun second watch when you know what's going on from all corners.
To like track all of the different journeys that people are on through it.
Totally similar to like rewatching one of the Scream movies when you know who the killer is and you're like watching what they're doing in each moment.
For sure.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. Wasn't my movie of the year, but really well directed, great performances. The most nominated, and I think that is where the Academy will go. That is my prediction.
Well, I like to be right more than I like to be happy. So I'm going to vote for West Side Story as the winner this year for Best Picture. I do think that Dune 2 could win. And I definitely think that if he goes on to direct Dune Messiah as a standalone, as a single film, that could also win.
Mm-hmm.
I hope he does that. But then again, I hope that Denny doesn't get trapped in franchise hell. So
he has signed on to do something else as well as Dune Part 2. It's like another adaptation of a novel. And I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. But it's like another space, not like fantasy. I think more like an astronaut sort of novel. But around the time Dune Part 2 got announced, he also like got attached to direct something else. So I feel like he's doing that after Part 2.
Okay.
I was thinking about this earlier. Dune Part 2 is really like, I think it's going to be much more action-y and much less prestige-y than Dune Part 1. Yeah. So it feels like this is much more the one that you would nominate.
True.
Because, no spoilers, some of those big actors that you love are not going to be in Part 2.
Right.
Part 1 is like political intrigue, thriller for a lot of it. Part 2 is more sort of like grand fantasy warfare.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that Return of the King is the one that got nominated the most, but I would say that is a little bit more of... That has more like emotional character stuff in it than I think Dune Part 2 will.
That is true. I think that's fair. I think Dune 2 is going to have far more hype moments, though, than Dune 1 did.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it is going to be far more of a crowd pleaser than the first one. And I think the first one was pretty good. I cannot wait to sit in one of the theaters that is screening them one right after the other when it comes out, because I'm sure that's got to happen, right?
Yeah.
I am, like, stoked to go in and watch 6 hours of Dune. That is like exactly what I want. It might not be for everybody, but anything else before we wrap this up?
Just to say that the Oscars themselves are going to be on Sunday, March 27th. So you've got a while to catch up on some movies if any of these sound good to you at home. Almost 2 months. We're going to be back after that to cover the winners. Everyone listening, send us your Oscar predictions. Let us know what you think is going to win or what was snubbed, what should have won. Send that to cinemabumspod@gmail.com, and we might read some on air the next time we're on to talk about the winners.
And a reminder that Wade and Emmett will be back next week on Tuesday to talk about Taika Waititi's Thor Ragnarok. So if you were pissed off by anything that my illustrious comrade Kurt Oscar or myself, Oscar Meyer, had to say this time around, please don't at Emmett, which you can't, or Wade, which you could, but please still don't, because, of course, we are totally separate people that have little to do with them except around Oscar season. Well, I don't know what they usually say, but have a great evening.
I've never listened to an episode.
I would never listen to such swill in my life. But have a wonderful evening and stay toasted. Cinema Bums is a production of DKG Podcasts. It is created and produced by Wade Lawrence Holloman and me, Emmett Temple. Wade also edits and mixes the podcast. Our theme music is by Zane Holloman, who you can find on Bandcamp, and our show art is by Autumn Beckner. Our social media is managed by Laura Bennett. If you like what you hear, please tell all your friends and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, the 2 best ways to spread the word about our work. You can also follow us on Instagram @CinemaBums or email us at cinemabumspod@gmail.com. Don't flake on us. We'll be back next week.